There is no way that I can choose just one video game as the absolute best one. There are so many good ones that I have spent my time with. So instead, I am presenting you with a list of games that are important to me, along with a bit about why they matter to me. Final Fantasy VII, because it challenged and pushed gender boundaries. In 1997, it was really a big deal and meant a lot to me as a young person, even though I wasn't able to verbalize any of it back then. And this isn't to say that there aren't a load of issues in the gender discussion presented in this game, because there is. But it was very powerful for me at the time to be playing a game that was even talking about these topics. That will always mean something to me. There was the option to try to woo various characters in the game as you played through the story. How you interact with them will determine who Cloud goes on a date with. The really cool part is that this game made it possible for Cloud to take Barrett on that date. The female characters in this game were not just passive maidens that needed to be rescued. They were active players on the stage that took actions that had an effect on the game's world. In 1997, the damsel in distress model was pretty much the norm. There was also the goofy cross-dressing scene. The idea of a male character dressing as a female character and actually having a good time doing it was pretty groundbreaking. Even now, 26 years later, we have seen few RPG games that have presented gender diversity like this. Honestly, I want more games to do more of this, and because of this attempt to include and represent a diverse group of people, this game will always hold a special place in my heart as being one of the first times I saw a glimpse of myself in the characters being presented in the game that I was playing. Resident Evil. The original one that came out back in 1996. This was the first horror game that I ever played, and it was an amazing experience. I was hooked on the genre of games immediately, and I am grateful that my sister invited me to watch her play it while we hung out together. And I think that this being a game that I shared is a big part of why I will always love it so much. I have many really great memories of being huddled up in the darkness, watching my sister play while squealing in both the light and fright in equal measure. BioShock. First released in 2007. This game told a great story and took us into a really interesting environment. A compelling and frightening world. Everything about this game was masterfully handled. The way it gave you the choice to save the little girls or not, with that having an impact on the end of the game. There was a ton of action and plenty of creepy visuals. The plot was beautifully unfolded, revealing splendid surprises and deeper levels of dark story. This game was one of the first really intense story games that I experienced, and I will always love it for that amazing first. The Last of Us. Released in 2013, this was one of the most emotionally intense stories that I have ever encountered, and by far the most intense within a video game. I have no shame in reporting that this one made me weep in the opening of the story. This game nailed character development and character-focused storytelling. Right from the first few moments of the game, I was invested. Their ability to make me believe and love their characters also allowed them to masterfully tug on my heartstrings as I watched those characters struggle and fight throughout the game. Soma, released in 2015. This is one of the most philosophical games that I have ever played. It really digs deep into difficult existential questions. I will always love it for never telling us what the right answers were and for not shying away from the complexity of the story. Not to mention, it did all of that while presenting me with a beautiful and terrifying world that had me constantly on edge. Alien Isolation, released in 2014. This one holds a dear place in my heart for getting everything right. It was a masterpiece that salutes everything that the Alien movie was, down to the smallest details. I appreciate the care and attention that was put into this game. I have loved the Alien movie since I first watched it back when I was like 12 or 11, I don't know. Playing this game felt like I was able to step into that world. The Xenomorph was beautifully designed. They allow me to really look at it and see all of its elegance while I'm cowering under a table. hoping that it won't find me and then rend me into tiny bits. The best tension and jump scare game that I have ever played. Little Nightmares. This one is a new addition to my list of loved games. Released in 2017, a masterpiece of storytelling. This game was filled with puzzles to solve and monsters to run or hide from. The world was dark and unsettling, but it was by far the story that has me loving this title. There are little bits and pieces sprinkled throughout the game that allow you to explore the nature of the world and the context of the character as much or as little as you like. It even threw in some good jump scares to keep me on my toes. So what do they have in common? No surprise that most of these games are within the horror genre. I will always be a horror fan. The one that isn't a horror is a dark fantasy game that has many of the elements that make the horror genre so amazing. Every single one of them is a game that tells a great story and takes me into an interesting world. Each of these games offered me something new and appealing to look at. They all asked me to think about things in a way that was a little bit different than the mainstream consideration. All of them are storytelling masterpieces. Well, that's about it for my rambling today. Thanks for coming and spending some time with me. If you like my rambling, then click on that like button. It really does help. And until we talk again, you guys, be sure to take care of yourselves.